Great.
There we
So,
What does it say?
It said that it's going to be recorded, Jared, so we can show it to people who wanted to come, but they couldn't, so they can watch it later and make the project.
yeah, and you might have to click continue on the screen to say you're okay with it being recorded. But we're going to be hosting this workshop this evening in conjunction with the Lansing Art Gallery's exhibition of symbiosis and interspecies collaborations by Lod Hanka, who got his MFA at Western Michigan University, and he lives in the Kalamazoo area, so local Michigan artist. I was going to start with showing you some of his work that they have on the gallery's website. I haven't had the chance to go down and actually see it yet, so I want to do share screen here real quick. And then hopefully you'll be able to see. So again, the symbiosis and interspecies collaboration. And here is an example of one of his works. And I found it interesting, he studied printmaking, which we did printmaking during either our last session or the session before, I forget which, with the markers. So it was a different process, but we used the styrofoam. He does etching on metal and it does prints. But what he also does is he takes his artwork and he puts it into the beehives. He's also a beekeeper. And when he puts his artwork in the beehives, sometimes he has to coat it in a little bit of wax, beeswax to begin with, so that the bees will be attracted to wanting to interact with it. But he said that it's really interesting. Sometimes they eat it. And I think that you can see around the edges, markings where they've been kind of eating at the edges of his artwork. So he'll make a print and then put the print in there, sometimes in book form. So you can see that this kind of looks raised up because it's actually a book opened up. And sometimes the bees will actually interact and put some of the hive, the honeycomb on top of his work. So I thought that that was kind of interesting to look at. And this is an example of him, a photo of him at a campfire. This is just something that's available on his personal website. So I wanted to include that so you get a sense of who he is. And from the gallery's website, you can also find out that he is first generation with his parents immigrating here from the Czechoslovakia region. And he came here and grew up in Iowa outside of, I think it was Cedar Rapids. And then he did some work with an engraver in Prague that was actually engraving pieces of metal to make their currency, their money. And so it was really intricate engraving process. And so he really got interested in printmaking, and that's why he got his master's in fine arts in printmaking. And he also grew up with a love of the bees. And both being an artist and keeping bees are two really kind of ancient practices, because if you go all the way back to like the cave paintings on the walls, people putting artwork on the walls is like the first artist, but there's also evidence that people actually kept bees well before they kept cows or sheep or even domesticated dogs and cats. So it's kind of a really interesting fact that he's kind of combining these two kind of ancient art forms. So I think you're all probably excited to get started though on the project. So I'm going to be shifting my camera. I have a new one today, so we're going to see how this works, but I'm going to try to angle it so you can see my work surface. And you all should have received your canvas, which is in a hexagon. So if you haven't already taken it out of the plastic, Jared and Ying and anybody else, Eli, I don't know if there's other people that have joined us since then, but you're going to want to make sure that you take that out of the plastic, and then we're going to get started. You can do that while I'm changing the camera around here a little bit. So Emily, if you have anything, need to talk to people, you can. And we'll see how this goes. We're going to be making a project today. It should be like that for you guys. So this has a little bit of additional work done to it, but we're going to be making something very similar to this. But one of the things, if you already have your canvas unwrapped, you should have also received a packet of different types of bees. And you can look through that packet of bees and decide which one you're going to want to work with today. So I try to put some different ones in there for you to look at. It doesn't have to be really highly detailed, but just some of the scientific drawings that I found of them were kind of pretty detailed, but we can look at those. So if you've got it unwrapped, you can start picking out which image of a bee you want to work with. Here's another example. This one is one of a side bee, so you can look at.
Those are really cool.
Thanks. Some of your participants may already have acrylic paint, so I can show you how to kind of finish it out this way if you're interested. I'm unwrapping my canvas myself, but do we have all the participants that you were expecting?
We're missing a few people, but it's okay. You can go ahead. You know, there could always be other technical issues or people could be late, and I don't want to keep, hold up folks who are on time. So.
Okay. Yeah. And you probably, if you opened your package, you also noticed that you got 2 different bags of kind of scrap paper. One is kind of randomly torn pieces, and the other are cut in hexagon shapes. And so you're going to decide what you want to work with today. You can use a mixture of both, but if you want to just use one or the other, I wanted to show you this one in the background. These are all hexagons, individual pieces that were for the collage part, whereas this one was more random, just pieces glued down. So both of them have acrylic paint parts components on top of them, but I wanted you to be able to see kind of what the difference in those 2 backgrounds and what they look like.
So basically, guys, what she's saying is one of the canvases just uses those hexagon pieces, and she fit them together almost like a puzzle on top of the canvas. And the other one,
I'll show you.
more like freeform, right? Like more like you use the rip pieces and. Is that right, Suzanne?
Yep. So if you were going to want to use some of the hexagon pieces, you could kind of think about like how they're going to fit together. And we don't have to do this beforehand because we're going to be gluing it all down at the same time. But that's one way that you could fit the pieces on there for the background. And if they hang over the edge, that's not going to be a problem because we can always fold them over. That's one way of doing a collage, because that's going to be the first part of our project, is to do a collage. But you can also use the randomly shaped pieces, and you can think about how they're going to overlap on your paper, on your canvas. So, it can be much more random if you prefer.
And, you could probably do both, right? So you could do the random that Susannah has on her screen right now. And then over that, you could put a few of the hexagon pieces, like if you just wanted 1 or 2. And then if you went in again later on with paint, you could trace those, or you could, embellish it a little bit if you wanted. There's a lot of options.
There are. Yep. So once you decide, you might want to look through the piles of the different types of paper you were given. And we are going to also be using Mod Podge, and Mod Podge is going to be our glue. If you have a container, you're more than welcome to put the Mod Podge in a container, but I'm going to show you how you can use it just right on the canvas, so you don't need a container. But you're also going to need to use your brush, and they provide you with a really nice big brush, so that'll work out really well for moving this Mod Podge around your canvas. So,
and everybody, great guys. There's so many uses for it. So it's definitely, you'll use it for this, but there's all kinds of crafts that you can use it for in the future too.
And one of the things you're going to have to do is, just so that these didn't leak in your packages you got in the mail, you're going to need to unscrew the cap. And then underneath, there's going to be a paper that's keeping the Mod Podge from coming out. So you're going to want to peel that off, and you can just discard that, put it in the trash, or you can just set it off to the side now so it's out of your way.
Can you catch me up real quickly?
Sure.
What you are exactly doing here?
Right. So eventually we're going to make a piece somewhat similar to this, but it's a layered process, and we're going to be starting with collage first and gluing different types of paper down. This one, if you can see, all these are individual in the background hexagons, and you should have received both hexagons and random pieces. So for your
Right
collage,
here.
you can decide if you want it to be random pieces on there or if you want to do the hexagon. And so that's what we're just getting ready to start one. And I have 2 canvases and I'll show you both. If that's, so I'm going to start with the hexagon first. So if you have your Ziploc of all of your hexagon pieces, you can just take some of them out and have them off to the side. I kind of like things to be random, so I don't necessarily go through and pick out the ones I want to use. I just kind of reach over and get one as we go. I think I need to get my camera to readjust it. Sorry. I'm trying to get it to focus again on the work area.
That looks good on my little screen. the way
It's
you have it.
okay.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
It looks good from here,
Okay.
and I'm on a computer.
Okay, maybe if I do it a little bit higher, that'll be better. There we go. All right, so what we're gonna start off with is taking the Mod Podge. And if you wanna pour it into a bottle or a paper plate or something like that, sometimes I use old lids just to put things in. You can do that, but what I like to do is just to squirt it right onto the canvas. So if you guys squirt just a small puddle of the Mod Podge right onto your canvas, then
Just a little bit, guys. Less is better than too much. You can always add more.
yeah, you can always add more, but then you can just kind of spread it all the way out around the edges. It's almost like you're painting the whole entire canvas just with the Mod Podge.
Are we doing like the whole canvas part?
We're going to do the whole canvas. The whole background is going to be collage. So we're just going to fill that whole thing. And I keep a little puddle kind of in the middle because I like to work from the outside, from one side to the other, almost like when you're reading a book, you start at one side and you go to the other when you're reading. So I've got glue all over my surface now. And as I said, I'm going to do one of each. This one I'm going to do with the hexagon shapes. And you can just line the first one up with the edge of your canvas. That will help you get started. But then that's what my little puddle's for. I can go back into my puddle and just go right on top of that piece. Because everything that we glue down, we're going to want to put the glue right back on the surface. And it will dry clear, even though it looks cloudy right now. It'll be perfectly fine when it's dry. So once you get your first piece started on a hexagon one, it's really just a matter of lining up the next one. Oops. Sorry, that was my fault.
Okay, I have this really crazy question. Is the bee that we're putting on it, is that actually going to be a black and yellow color bee?
So you should have received your colored pencils, and we'll be adding the color with the colored pencils. But we're gonna get the background done first, and then while it's drying, we'll work on the bee next.
Well, that's why I'm trying to figure out what color I want my background.
Oh, yeah.
You
So-
can choose any colors you want.
You can choose whatever colors you want. It's going to be an overlay on top. So
Oh,
it's going to be on top of it. You should have received in with the images of the bee. You also received some paper that's pretty transparent. It's vellum paper, and we're going to be tracing a bee with that paper and then gluing that whole thing on top. But if you see here, what I'm doing right now is really just thinking about filling in all the space with different shapes. And as I said, if you want to do it this way with the hexagons, you can. So I started that one that way, and I'm just going to keep going around. And if you get to the part where, let's say it's going to hang over the edge, I don't know if you can see that that's going to hang over the edge there. You can also just put glue on the side of your canvas and then just wrap that around. So it'll
Also,
stay.
Guys, if you are spending a bit more time fitting your pieces together, that Mod Podge that you spread out might be dry, but you can just put a little bit more over it. It's okay to, if your canvas feels dry where you put it already, it's okay to put more on there.
Yeah. So you can see I'm just constantly going back to that little puddle that I started. And just like Emily said, if it gets dry in certain areas, you can just go back into that puddle and get some more. And again, if it goes off the edge, you can just put it there, the Mod Podge on the edge of your canvas, and then just wrap that around the edge of it.
are you overlaying those pieces?
So for me, with this one right now, because I'm just doing the hexagon, they're not overlapped. I'm just
Okay.
actually taking it up to the edge of one of them. Oops. Let's see
Okay.
here.
Like a
I'm
puzzle.
sorry.
Like a puzzle
My
piece.
eyes are really, really bad. I
No, don't
apologize for
worry.
asking crazy ass questions.
No,
No,
if you have
no
questions, I'm
no
sure
question
someone
is
else-
crazy.
Yeah,
We're
and
always
I-
in a learning process in life. We're
You
lifelong
don't know
learners.
me too well then.
I think all your questions are helpful because I'm sure somebody else might be wondering the same thing. So,
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna stop working on this one for a minute, but we will finish filling in the whole space. So Timothy, sorry, my son's, you can let her out, it's okay. My dog wants to run free, sorry. She's whining, so.
That's
And-
why I leave my back door open so my cat can just come and go as she pleases.
Yeah. So you can see here, I just keep going back. If they overlap a little bit, like if I didn't line these up perfectly and I lay the next one in there, it might overlap a little bit, and that's totally fine as well. But you're just going to keep filling that whole thing in. I'm going to set this one to the side so I can show you the other technique of just, again, I always start the canvas by pouring the Mod Podge on there. And again, spreading it around the whole canvas just to get started. It's almost like you're painting the canvas white. And this nice big brush will really help move that around. So you can kind of load the brush up and then spread it all out. And then if you wanted to use your bag of just loose little scraps of paper, again, I kind of like to start at the edge just because then I feel like I can work across the paper. So if I wanted to put overlapping pieces, sometimes some of these are cut pieces and some of them are torn, and you might like the difference between the hard edges and kind of the ridge, the not ruffles, but you know, the uneven surface of a torn piece. You can always overlap those. So Sandy, you were asking about overlapping. So I overlap that matte piece a little bit. I might overlap this orange piece a little bit. And it just kind of
Okay.
gives your canvas a little bit of texture underneath. But like Emily was saying earlier, you can also include some of those hexagon pieces. You don't have to just use one or the other. So if I wanted to put a hexagon piece in here, I definitely could go back and add that and have it overlap a little bit. Can you guys see
Okay.
what I'm working on okay?
I can see it. Yeah. Can everyone else see it okay?
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, so again, same thing. If it's going to go over the edge, just put some of the glue on the edge of the canvas. And sometimes you can kind of squeeze that part that's going to hang over just to help it get stuck down there a little bit. But there should be tissue paper in there. So the tissue paper again can overlap, but also just be down by itself. So when it overlaps, it gives you a couple of different colors or textures there. So you should have lots of different thicknesses of paper and things that you can work with for the collage. How's everybody doing with their collage? I'm not doing shared screen, so that way I can, if you guys have questions or anything, know that you're always welcome to unmute yourself and just ask any question. I love that, Sandy, you've asked questions already. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I'm the big mouth of the group, so I'll be the first one to talk.
And
That's
I
perfect.
appreciate you, Sandy. I'm glad that you will speak up and ask questions. It's helpful for other people.
Yes,
know.
very much so. And so I don't know if you can see this. It's bleeding out a little bit.
Good, Jared. Ha, cool. I like the colors that you
Oh,
use.
it's so nice.
Yeah,
Nice
I
one,
like
Jared.
it.
So should he be putting some of the other pieces in these open spots on
He can,
top?
yeah. Yes,
He
if you want,
can.
totally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, you want to put some in some of these places?
And I don't know if you can see, but sometimes the tissue paper bleeds. So you can see that this tissue paper is bleeding out yellow, which then can give you a little bit of color too. It's almost like painting with it a little bit too. So
Yeah,
I might
that's
go in
hard.
here and
The-
see if the
I
green's
forgot
gonna.
to mention that to Katie, the tissue paper in our classroom is made especially to bleed the color off. So it'll do that a lot.
I love that. That's,
It looks cool.
yeah, it like adds a really beautiful quality to the work.
Mhm.
Put something right there.
Yeah, so that's a good question. about Jared's piece. So you can definitely fit in the other pieces. You can also rip them or cut them, depending on how much, how precise you want to be. So there's really very few rules to collaging, I feel like.
Yep.
And Jared, I can't remember if you hadn't been in class super long before COVID happened. I can't remember if we did collage in class with you or not, but I know Hui has done like 5 million collages in our art classes. So I'm sure he's familiar with the process.
Yeah. How's everybody doing? Are some people getting close to being finished with the collage, or?
You,
That's okay. We give you as much time as you need. I don't think.
Yeah,
well, I
we've
should
got
say
plenty
that,
of
but-
time. I'm working on 2 canvases while you guys are working on your one. So even if I get finished with one, I'm still gonna go back and finish that other one too. And you might notice too, sometimes if I have like the pile of papers and I just touch it with my brush and I can pick it up and then put it on there too. So you're not always having to get the glue all over your hands. So again, you can just kind of like pick up a piece and then just set it down and put the glue, go back to your puddle. If you run out of glue in your puddle, just add a little bit more, right? And try to make sure that you can't see any of the canvas by the end, but
What I like about the random one, that like the one you're working on right now, Susanna, is that it's not as like, you can be a little more random with it. So if you, sometimes I have a
Yep.
hard time, like, what should I do? Where should I start? Like with this like random collage, you don't really have to overthink it. You can just kind of even sprinkle the pieces on there and just tape, glue them where they land.
yeah,
So it can, for me, it helps sometimes if I feel anxious about the art, but
what's that for?
That one's kind of big, kind of fit in there. Put one right in there.
so did anybody have any questions? I was going to talk to you a little bit about the title of the exhibition that's at the Lansing Art Gallery. Emily, have they had the chance to interact with the artists yet?
no, not yet. No, hopefully we'll have that later
No.
this month though.
Yeah, so the title of his work, Symbiosis and Interspecies Collaborations. Symbiosis, which most of you probably know, is a relationship between 2 different organisms where both parties, both organisms benefit from working together. Interspecies are 2 different types of animals or species,
Where?
creatures working together and or being in close connection with each other. And then the collaborations is more than, one person working together to create something. So I think that all 3 of those words in the title of his work really speak to him making his own artwork first with the printing process, and then putting it inside the beehive so that the bees can interact with it and add their own components to his work. So
I can think
I don't
of
know if
another-
anybody.
Example of an interspecies collaboration, would it be like if you have a service animal, that would kind of be like
Yeah.
interspecies collaboration, right?
Yep. And I was thinking like the collaboration part, some of you participated in like that pen pal project.
Yeah.
That was definitely a collaboration between the artist and you. That's why I was wondering if they had worked with the artist yet, if they were going to do a collaboration with Lod as well. But
I hope so. Yeah, we haven't gotten that all worked out yet, but I really hope that we get to do something. Because it's really, his artwork is so interesting. Like I've never seen anything like it.
yeah. And the fact that he could take 2 of his loves, like the love of beekeeping and the love of painting and working as an artist, is really interesting.
It made me think about like what other species can we collaborate with to make art? Like other than like putting paint on our dog's feet and letting them run around, like what else I wonder could we do?
That's funny. One time when I had a wonderful balcony when we lived in Greece, and we stretched out a whole thing of paper and we would bounce the ball because we kind of controlled the bouncing of the ball. And then we put paint on the dog's paws. So it walked across the paper after the dog. And so it was a collaboration between the dog and us as the kind of dog owners.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
fun.
But I like the idea that when he puts his artwork in the beehive, sometimes the bees actually eat the paper. I thought that was kind of interesting that there's, a consumption, like when you think of art, like you kind of consume it when you look at it. It's kind of like a commodity to an extent, or, you know, you hang it on your wall, but like they're consuming it in a different way. They're actually, you know, ingesting it and making it part of their being. So
That's really
that
deep.
was kind of,
I haven't thought about art as commodity since art school. That's very deep.
I haven't thought about art really for the last year and a half until we started these classes again.
Well, I'm
yeah,
glad you're doing them
it's
then.
been a,
Yeah,
I was
'cause
just gonna say, it's been a hard year for staying connected with art in a lot of ways, I feel like.
Yeah.
It has been, especially like for me. And right now, I for my artwork that I normally do, I am so blocked.
Mm. You've been
And
saying that, yeah.
I mean, it's worse now than it has ever have been. So obviously, starting next Wednesday,
I know, I'm excited.
Are you going back in person?
We're starting open studio in person next week.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then we're starting at one of our other locations. We're gonna start a few in-person classes, and then I'm not sure when all of our classes will come back yet to the greenhouse. I think it'll still be a while because some of our work programs are still paused, so.
I'm hearing, I don't know if you've heard yet, but a friend of mine had gotten a hold of me and said that they're thinking about bringing SWE back in August.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It sounds like it's not set in stone yet. That's why we don't know yet, you know, like when those classes will start. But yeah, that's exactly it. That program is still technically paused. So hopefully
Right.
August, September, we'll see. But I can't wait.
That'll be
Because
nice.
I'm asking the supervisor here if she can maybe help me get back into Peckham
Oh, okay, yeah.
just for a couple of days a week like I was, because I'm not sure if I can handle it again.
Yeah.
But you know, but I'm gonna try to be there. Like I want to work at least on a Monday or on a Wednesday so I can be there for class anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking maybe Mondays and Wednesdays, just from maybe 9 to 11 or 9 to 12 or something. I don't want to push myself again like I did
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple years ago and totally freaked out about everything and had to retire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I
Um,
know they really need people everywhere, so hopefully that works out, Sandy. That'd be great to have you back more than just
Emily,
I want to come back. I you know, I mean, like I said, just for a couple of hours. That's about it.
Mhm.
how's everybody? Are some people, Jared, are you finished with your background?
yeah, on what day next week?
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
So-
I can email that information to Emma and let her know what it is, okay? And then she can contact you and see if it would work. Because it would be, so it's not normal art class, Jared, it's open studio, which is more like drop-in. So I don't do any teaching or anything. But actually that's a good idea. I'll email the SWE VSS and let them know that you guys are more than welcome to come if you want. It's just, we got to work out the details.
So if
Oh.
anybody is finished with their background, I want to give you the next step so you can be working on that. If that's okay, because Jared, you're finished. Is anybody else finished with their background? You want to hold it up? I'd love to see what you're working on.
Can you turn that around, please, so I can see it? Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Very nice, Okay, so if
Very
you're
cool,
finished
Jared.
with your background, I'm going to set mine aside for a second and show you what the next step is. For the next part, you're going to need to have your Sharpie marker, and you need to pick one of the bee images that you want to work with. And once you pick which bee you want to work with, sorry, I was trying to make this, oh, I can make that taller. I think that'll be better. Once you pick which bee you want to work on, we're going to trace that. So you'll have I think I sent 2 pieces of the vellum, so if you make a mistake, that's totally fine. But you're going to take the bee and then set the vellum on top of it, and you can easily see through. So Jared and if you're ready to move on, you'll just take the Sharpie and holding the paper with one hand so that it doesn't move. You're going to just start tracing around it with the black Sharpie marker. So you can see there, I'm just going around. If some of the areas are black, you can shade them in more, but you can also just go around those areas because we're going to add some color when it comes to the bees colors with the colored pencils that you got. So if you're waiting because you're finished with the background, this is going to be the next step. You're going to work on tracing the bee shape that's of interest to you, and not just the outside edge. We're also going to be tracing around the patterns on it on the inside. You can do little squiggly lines if you want. They can be straight lines, however you want it to be. Depending on which bee, it might be a side image or it might be from overhead, like this one's looking down at the bee.
And feel free, guys, if you want to do some, like, if you want to just use that bee underneath your vellum as a guide, you can always kind of freestyle and add in other details. I know, Eli, you already are really good at rendering, so you could even use the bee body as like almost like a skeleton to build your own thing off of, or to kind of like freestyle and make something up. So I love this technique because you know, anyone can do it, right? We can trace, and it doesn't have to be perfect, or you can use it to kind of build your own style from. So yeah, feel free to do. It doesn't have to be exactly what the bee is. It can be, it doesn't have to be perfect, basically, or you can, you know, build off it as well.
Right, yeah. And speaking, Sandy asked earlier about adding the color to the bees. The bees obviously don't have to stay orange and black, like, or yellowish color and black. Your bee could be purple and green. I mean, it can be any color you really want the bee to be. We're just kind of focusing on that as a subject matter because the connection with the artist whose artwork you're going to be looking at maybe later this week when you meet with the artist, or next week. But also, if you have that second piece of vellum, if you don't want to do a bee at all, you want a different, you know, insect or animal, you can also do that. I think you heard me refer to my son a few minutes ago. I'll show you. He wasn't happy with the bee, so he wanted me to make one that was a tarantula.
Oh, cool.
So you could do, it was the same technique. I just drew a tarantula on the vellum, that see-through transparent paper. I drew the tarantula on that instead. But you can try to check your work. I've kept this hand still the whole time holding my paper down, right? And you can kind of check to see what maybe other parts you still need to do when you lift it up there a little bit. So I might want to put a few more of his little hairs in here.
Looks good, Jared.
And then once you have that traced, you can use your colored pencils to add the color to it. So go ahead and color in your bee however you want it to look with the colored pencils.
I'm overlapping some of this. That's okay, right? Even though I'm using the hexagon stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
Totally okay.
I don't know if you saw, but I kind of lost the placement of one of mine. So mine are kind of all overlapping at this point, and that's totally fine.
Okay.
So some of you might be working on coloring the bee right now. You might still be working on the background, but that's totally fine. We got plenty of time. I'm going to finish up this background so I can work on it with you both.
And if you have other art supplies besides colored pencils, markers or pens or crayons or whatever, you can use anything you want to color on that.
Yeah, if you use though the water-based markers like Crayola, it might bleed out a little bit when we put the glue on it.
Oh yeah, no.
So
it's
you
a
might
really-
want to stick with Sharpies if you have Sharpie markers or the colored pencils. Just a
Yep.
heads up.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Yeah, but it might make some really cool effects to do it where it's bleeding out too. So it's really, sometimes art for me is a lot about what just happy little accidents, if you grew up with listening to Bob Ross when he was teaching people to paint, and I think he's popular again. He was always about just things kind of happening on their own. Just little accidents maybe, but that turn out really beautiful and wonderful. So
Sometimes
there's
that's
no
the
right or
best
wrong ways
art.
of doing things in art. So.
Yeah, I agree, Sandy. That's how you get the best art. The hard part though is for you as an artist, like for me, when I have a plan in my head and a happy accident happens, sometimes it's hard for me to adjust and be okay with it. But
Yeah.
I'm almost happier that way. When there's a mistake that way that turns out really good, because then well, you know me, I end up changing my whole picture to go around that happy accident that turned out good.
that's good. That means you can accept it and work with it. That's says a lot, I think, about your creative process.
Because I mean, how many times have I changed a picture around just to get it the way I like it halfway through doing it,
Mm-hmm.
How's everybody doing? You're more than welcome to unmute yourself so you can talk with us and let us know how you're doing. Is there a message in the chat that somebody, or is that you put something in the chat?
That was me. I was just letting people know that the gallery is open again for visitors.
Oh, nice.
So Thursdays through Saturdays, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And actually this Saturday we have a meet and greet. That's not in the chat, but we have a meet and greet with Lad Hanka, the artist for this exhibition. So if anyone wants to come on Saturday, we will have a lot of fun things going on.
That sounds wonderful.
How long is this exhibition up for, Julie?
I can double check actually, because
Well, I would really like to see it, but I'm only in Lansing right now, maybe 1 or 2 days a week.
It
sure.
goes until the 21st of August.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, it's up for a long time. That's excellent. Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure it goes through most of August. So yes, yep, 21st.
All right, cool. Thank you.
All right.
There's
You
also
know,
an artist
Emily,
house
I
coming-
absolutely love seeing you, but where's Katie tonight?
Katie, she had something going on tonight and she gets off at 5, so I make it optional for her. She doesn't have to stick around, and she had something she had to do tonight.
Oh, okay.
She's in graduate school right now and she had a class tonight. It was her last class of the semester. So
Oh, okay. I will excuse her this time.
but Sandy, her last day is Monday.
What?
I know, she's moving. They're moving to Ohio because her boyfriend's in graduate school, which I'm okay saying. She said that before on our Zoom calls.
She has to go with him?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess he must be a pretty nice guy.
So it's only a 4-hour drive.
Yeah, I know.
That's
So
not
anyway,
even fair. Can she not wait until Wednesdays so we all can say bye to her?
I know. She did make a video to say goodbye, so we can all watch that. I haven't watched it yet, actually.
All right.
That one's just not fair.
I know. It's been such a crazy year. I mean, it's
Does she not? I was just gonna say, does she not understand how hard this year's been for all of us as it is? With the disabilities as it is, because I think it's been a little bit harder for us than those that don't have the disability.
There
And now
has-
she's gonna pack up and leave us a video goodbye. Oh, come
I
on.
haven't watched it yet, but I'm certain that it's really very good and genuine and personal. So
I'm sure it is.
and we were lucky. We got her for a whole second year. That never happens. I mean, we got her for basically 2 years.
I know.
We were so lucky because all my other interns graduate and move right away. So, yeah, we owe her so much because she helped us, keep the program running while I was out on maternity leave and through the pandemic. So, oh, that looks good, Sandy.
So if you're ready to move on, I don't know if Jared, you have it all colored in? you're going to need to have a pair of scissors next. So if you can go and locate a pair of scissors, that would be great. Or I can show you how to tear it out a little bit.
Where is my what? Oh,
Oh, I don't know if Eli, if you can find scissors and.
Yep, or you can tear, that's, yep, you just
Yep.
gotta be patient.
Yep, so I'm
Okay.
gonna show you that in just a second. I'm gonna go clean my hands because I have a lot of the glue on them, so I'll be right back.
How you doing, Hui? Let's see. Oh, very cool. You have some extra time now if you want to keep coloring that in, if you want to add color to the rest of it. That's just fine. That's the one that you used, yeah. That looks nice. Yeah, Jared, if you want to add more color to your bee, you can. You can leave it that way too. We just have a little extra time because Susanna's cleaning her hands up.
So,
Cool, nice, Hui. Looks good. Okay, yep,
Alright.
based on that one, nice.
so once you have it colored in, you might want to make sure that you've colored it pretty intense in color, just so it'll stand out a little bit more. So I like to blend colors, like this is yellow on there, but then I might also go back in with the orange and the red and kind of blend the colors. So when I'm adding color to something, I always tell my students the rule of 3, always add 3 colors. Even if it's the black area there, you could always go back in with other colors to add a little bit of variety. So it'll just give it a little bit more, something visually interesting. And that extra layer of color is also going to help make it pop a little bit more off of your canvas. So you can see here, this was 2 different shades of blue and a black that filled in that section instead of just coloring it all black.
so we're using the tracing paper, putting it down on one of the pictures and tracing it,
Beads.
right?
Yes, yep,
Yep,
With the mark, with the
Yep.
Sharpie.
with the Sharpie, yep,
that's
Okay,
right.
just
And-
wanted to make sure.
yeah.
Again, as I said, I like adding more than one color to different areas. It's really up to you. As I said, your bee could be green and purple. It can be any color really you want. If you have scissors, that's great. If you do not, I'm going to show you here in just a second how to tear them out a little bit. I'm adding a little bit of purple to my legs here. I don't know if you can see that color coming up very much, but. And again, the reason we're using the colored pencils and not like water-based markers is just when you put the Mod Podge on, they might smudge just a little bit, but the colored pencils will not. Or Sharpie markers. If you have Sharpie markers, you could use that as well. And if you traced some of their hair, sometimes it helps to color in the same directions of the lines that was like the hairs of the bees. That'll kind of help give it a little bit of depth with the colors. And even if for the wings, instead of leaving them clear, I put a little bit of light blue on there. You could put other colors if you want, but you guys got 2 different sets of blue. So you could use also like a dark blue to go around like a little bit of the edges of the wings. So I used a light blue on the middle part of the wings and then the darker blue around the outside edges. But then you can also take your white, which might seem weird, but you can actually go back on top of it with the white and it actually acts as a little bit of like a blending stick to kind of get them to smooth out in color a little bit too. So.
Yeah, colored pencils are really great for layering colors, and I feel like the way we're taught to use them a lot of times when we're in elementary school isn't to layer them, right? We just kind of color with them.
Yeah.
And they work so well for layers.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I always try to tell kids 3 colors. Like you could even go back in here with the green a little bit and add a little bit of green to these wings. Because, you know, sometimes when you look at wings of animals, they're kind of iridescent and they shine different colors. So That's just adding a little bit of green to those wings too.
So the
But-
blending sticks that we got
For the
from one of our
pastels,
projects,
yeah,
can we, would those work like with the colored pencils?
you can, but also I just use the white a lot of times, even if I did 3 different colors, like say here, the orange, red, and yellow that I put for the inside of the bee's body, I'll just go back over it with the white sometimes, and that helps blend the colors a little bit too.
Oh,
Would the
okay.
blending stick work or would it not work with the colored pencil? Susanna?
It would work. You can even, use your finger to an extent. If you think about it, the emulsion layer, the thing that's holding the pigment together in a colored pencil is similar to a crayon. There is a bit of wax that's in there. And so it's, how you can kind of smudge wax crayons a little bit. You can do the same with the colored pencils. So, but I was going to show you. So if you have scissors, I'm just going to cut out half of this with the scissors and show you. Don't go right up to the edge. You're going to want to leave a little bit of an edge around everything because it's really hard to cut out those legs individually. So you're going to want to leave, I don't know if you can see that, but when I cut that away, I'm leaving about a half of an inch to 1/4 of an inch to a half an inch around it while I'm cutting it out.
And if it's more than that, guys, it's okay because when you put that Mod Podge on, the vellum will look clear. So if you
Yeah.
have a larger edge there, it's definitely okay. Just do whatever works for you and your scissors. Because I
Yeah.
know like in the studio, for example, we have some scissors that are really small that work for some things, but for something like this detailed, they'd be hard to kind of move around the
Yeah. Some of these get really thin, and it's okay if you don't. The other thing you can do too is if you you don't have scissors, you can just kind of know where the thing is going to be and just kind of just gently tear around it. And again, you don't have to get really close. I always kind of protect the thing that I don't want torn with my hand. So that way I make sure I don't tear that part. So I would turn my paper as I go so that I'm protecting this wing and this foot and then just tearing the paper around it. And this paper tear is really easy. So again, I just kind of protect it with my hand that I'm not tearing with. And then you can always go back and tear a little bit, but you don't have to get it precise. You can see here that there's a lot left up here at the top, right? There's some left over here on the side, more so than if I cut it out. Right. But if you get to this point and you're ready to move on, I want to show you the next step. If you guys want to take a break from what you're doing, I can show you the next step. Since I've torn this out or I've cut it out, you're going to take your canvas with the background, and the background by this point has dried to an extent. So you're not going to be able to just put this down. You're going to first want to put some more glue on there. And again, I like to just go in with my squirt bottle there and squirt out a little puddle of the glue and spread that all around again, almost like you're painting the whole surface. I'm going to try to let my dog in here for a second because she seems very unhappy to be outside. Hang on one second. Okay. So I've painted the whole surface again with the glue, or I've like you're painting it white. And then you can position your bee however you want it to sit on the canvas. If you want it to be centered, you want to think about how much space between the top of the antenna and the bottom of the body. And you can kind of pick it up and position it the way you want it. Once you get it to the place that you're happy with, again, thinking about how far the bee's wings are from the side. Some people might want the hexagon to sit flat across, but you could also have that positioned on there at an angle. But once you figure out how you want it to be, you want your bee to be, I think that's kind of funny, where you want it positioned, you are going to set it down there and again, put another squirt of the glue on top or the Mod Podge, and then you're going to be spreading that around the surface of it as well. So we have it still underneath and then spreading it around on the surface there. And that will help it lay flat. If there's parts that you get little wrinkles and it bothers you, you can always lift them back up a little bit and get them to stretch out a little bit better. And if you're unhappy with like, you can kind of see here a little bit where that edge of that vellum paper is, you can always go back to and add a little bit more of the scraps of paper and hide the edges of that a little bit. If you want to add some more of the collage pieces, you can do that. And it will wrinkle up a little bit, but again, you can kind of go to the middle and push it out to the edges, and it'll help get rid of wrinkles that are in that vellum as you're going.
That's kind of one of the benefits of ripping it, is the edge is more organic, so it blends in better. But it's also like, if you're gonna rip it, guys, just go slow and just take your time. Because yeah, if you get a little too strong with it, you could end up ripping your bee. But also you can just glue both pieces on, and if you were to rip your bee, and it'd be fine. So
yeah. So at this point, if you had other things that you wanted to add in, you could always add components. You have still some vellum, you got 2 pieces, and even if you made a mistake on it, you might have still some areas that are open. So you could take the Sharpie, and let's say I wanted it to say like Buzz. I could go in and write words on here if I wanted. Sorry, it's backwards for you all when I'm writing it. Say I wanted it to have words as a component, I could also use the vellum to add other components on there. So it doesn't just have to be the bee by itself. Let's say I wanted it to have, like, if that's too big, then I could always make that smaller with another smaller piece. So maybe I don't want to be that big. Right, and I could tear that or cut it. And you could add text to it if you wanted to have text. Right. Could add other things. I think that's showing you a mirror copy, so it looks like it's spelled backwards, but could do it that way. So it looks like it's the right way for you guys now. If you want it to have words on there as well. And I wanted to show you too, if you have acrylic paint and you want it to have a little bit more texture to it, is that okay, Emily, if I show them that component?
Oh yeah. I think most of the people on the call have acrylic paint, and a lot of the folks who are going to watch it at home also do. So yeah, I think it's totally okay.
Okay, great. I'm gonna grab something. So I like a lot of texture in my artwork. So a lot of times I'll use bubble wrap, or this is shelf liner type things you can put under rugs and whatnot. And I don't always clean my brush out between, because it still has the Mod Podge on there, but for me, that's okay. If you have acrylic paint, you could pick what color you wanted and put it into wherever you have for your palette. But I then, even though the glue is still in there, I would just go into the paint there and paint it onto the bubble wrap. You can see the texture there, just in a small space. And then I would dab it onto the canvas in different areas. And you can always go back and get more. That'll give it a little bit of texture of like honeycomb to an extent. You can see that. Maybe I want to do another color on there too. I tend to like cool colors, like the cool palette of purple, green, and blue, but you could use the warm color palette as well of red, orange, and yellow. But again, I'm not even cleaning my brush because I'm kind of wanting things to blend a little bit. I'm just gonna go in here, put a little bit more on the bubble wrap and just kind of stamping that around a little bit. And then maybe I'm gonna use, maybe this time I use a little bit of yellow to give it a little bit of different variety of color. And I might use this other little thing here I have for texture. It doesn't have to be something that you press down onto it, but I find that sometimes when you're painting, you feel like you have to cover certain areas. And if you kind of leave it to chance of just putting it on something that you're just kind of add the texture to it, you kind of have less fear of making mistakes and just kind of just being random with it. Now, can you guys see
Yeah.
what I'm doing on there? Maybe I'll use some orange here. You can also just put the, if you have smaller containers of the acrylic, you could put it right on the texture where you want it to be, and then spread it out a little bit. And just to give it a little bit of depth. So if you get it in the wrong place, you can see I'm just using my hand to kind of clean that off. If you're not happy with that, maybe don't want to cover up all my wing there. So I cleaned that back off a little bit. And the other thing that I did on my canvas is I took black acrylic paint, but once it's dry, you could use a Sharpie marker to do the exact same thing. But I take the black paint, if I can find it here. I thought I had some at the beginning before I started. Oh, maybe I'm going to use this dark green because I can't find the black right now. But I'm going to use that to kind of trace around the shape of a hexagon. And if you'd used a random background, you could actually take one of those cutouts and just kind of set it on your canvas and then take your paintbrush and kind of paint. Or if your painting's dry, you could use your Sharpie and just go around a couple of the hexagons to add those back in. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but maybe I want to do this one. I'm just kind of tracing around it a little bit. I couldn't find the black, so I'm just using green, but it gives it another depth to it as well. So. Maybe I'll do some in blue. But if it's dry, you could definitely do Sharpie marker back on top of it and do the same type of thing where you're going back in and adding some outlines of some of the shapes. This brush is kind of thick and I haven't cleaned it, so I'm not getting really thin, crisp lines. But the other thing about it is if you use acrylic and you're not happy, again, you can kind of smudge it, get rid of it, start again, right? So if I wasn't happy with some of these, I thought that they were not the right shape, or I wasn't happy with them, and kind of just blend it and add some more colors in other areas. Does that make sense? If you did a patterned background, so you can just go back in and add the lines actually right around some of them. So you could take the brush and just trace the outlines of some of those pieces. Sorry, I'm doing this off the screen for you. I don't outline all of them. Usually artists work in groups of like odd numbers, so like maybe do 5 or 7 or 9 of them. Sometimes a couple of them right beside each other is nice. And then your B will be on top of them.
It helps that pattern stand out.
Yeah, so this is what it looked like with the black. And that's the one with the hexagon backgrounds that I just traced around them. And then this is the random background. You can see some of the magazine images there, and then just tracing around some of them. Again, I didn't trace all of them, but I thought that it gave it a little bit more definition. But you can see here how I had the bubble wrap and that smaller little piece here to get some texture on those too. And if you have the acrylic paint, and you want to make them stand out a little bit more, you can also go back in and you could add color right on top of your V to make it stand out just a little bit more too. So it's not quite so transparent. I haven't cleaned my brush. So one way, it's kind of the cheater's way of cleaning your brush is just to try to get as much paint out of it as you can on a scrap piece of paper. And then say I wanted to shift to orange. Now I could pick that up and I could go back in here and add some orange to the body of the bee to make it stand out a little bit more. Now, does that help? Can you guys see that a little bit of difference in color?
I think one thing to keep in mind, adding that acrylic over that bee, is you want to less is more when you start, because you don't want to cover up, you know, all the creating work that you just did. So I would say be really subtle with that, so you can build the layers up as you go. But if you put too much on, it's a lot harder to knock it back so that you can see your drawings.
Yeah, I don't know if you could see that. I was just doing tiny little brush strokes. I wasn't hardly doing, like, I didn't do a huge swipe with the brush. I was basically just painting little areas like this. I wasn't taking the orange and just painting it like that, right? I'm trying to think about just like the little hairs of the bee, just adding little details. And that's how I was going back in and adding little details too, if you have the paints. Looks like I didn't really give him any eyes. You can always go back in with the marker later when it's dry, or you could go back in with the paint, either way, if you have the acrylic there, or Sharpie markers. Once it's dry, you really can do anything to the surface of it there. It's gonna dry clear, even if it's still a little cloudy from the Mod Podge, it will dry in this nice clear finish. So you won't be able to see it. It might be a little shiny, but it's gonna be clear. Do you guys want to share what you're working on?
So far.
I'm gonna remove the spotlight.
Very cool.
Yeah, you should be able to go to the gallery view now and maybe see each other's artwork a little bit more. Sandy, how are you doing?
I am coloring my bee.
Nice.
Wonderful. Nice. I like that.
It looks like Jared hopped off, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he said he had to go and he'll send you the picture later, Emily.
Oh, that was Eli,
Great.
I think. Yeah, Eli had to go. Yep.
Oh, and Jared had to go too. Okay. Yeah.
And I
So-
actually have to go because I have to drive home
Okay.
for bath time for my baby.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad that I got the chance to work with everybody again. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have the next one on the calendar for the Art Alliance, but I'll be leaving the country on Monday, but I'll be back August 9th, so we can maybe set something up
cool.
for August or
Where are
September.
you headed?
My husband's an archaeologist and he's already over in Greece. And
Oh,
so
cool.
my sons and I will be joining him. So
That's so cool.
yeah, we met there in 1995, and the dig that we met on, he's now the new director of. So it's through Michigan State University
cool.
Excavations at Isthmia.
That was
Yeah.
going to be a question for you, Emily. Are we going to continue with the Zoom classes also on top of in class?
I think we will. Yeah, at least at the very least for the remainder of this program year with the Lansing Art Gallery. And actually I'm meeting tomorrow with Michelle from the gallery to talk about like the next grant year. But I seem to think it's worked well. I feel like it's helps more people participate. I don't know. What do you think, Sandy?
Okay, personally for me, I've absolutely love it because I have learned so much from you anyways, Susannah. Susannah, sorry.
Susanna.
Because when I'm not feeling good, like when it comes to winter time, at least I don't have to give up art completely because I can still do it on Zoom. And I think I've learned a lot. Personally for me, as this is like a total art class, a learning, teaching art class for me compared to Peckham. For me, it's an open art class. So I
Exactly.
can just come in and do whatever I want,
Mhm.
which I love to do anyways. But I think the Zoom itself is such a great learning tool. So we can learn from whatever you have to teach us and stuff. And
Yeah.
things are like, I mean, I have a little container right here that I keep all my stuff that I've gotten from, all my
All the
materials
art that
and
you've
stuff.
made.
Yeah, I do, so I don't get it screwed up with my own stuff. But it's like, so I can go back and go, oh, that's right. You know what? I did that with clay that one time. I wonder if I can do it again this way. How did she do that again? Oh, that's right. And so
Yeah,
to me, I think it's a great learning
yeah,
to to me, it's more of a regular art class where we are actually being taught.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think maybe that can help you too in open studio when it is just really wide open. So now you'll have
Yeah.
new skills that you can take to open studio and work into your artwork.
yeah. And I don't want to stop the discussion on that. I know because we already lost two, but Wei and Sandy, make sure that you clean your brush really well with lots of soap and water because
yeah.
the Mod Podge will dry in there and then you wouldn't be able to use it later. And it's such an awesome
I
brush.
have a glass of water,
Wonderful, but make sure
soap
you use
water
lots of
anyways,
soap
right
on
here
it.
on my art tables.
Yeah, but Sandy, I think you're trying to do with my students too is that you teach them a technique, and it might not be the subject matter that they want to paint. Their own art
Right.
skills. that you
Again,
do.
I've never had any, well, the only kind of art I ever had was clay. That was clear
Yeah.
back in high school 5 years ago or whatever. But art class itself, I have never had no kind of classes of whatsoever. I just went into the open
Yeah,
studio. Then
experimented.
it was like, yeah, because that's all I could do. So this has been a really major learning tool for me. And I'm hoping it's for everybody else that has been here also.
Yeah.
That comes and goes on these on a monthly basis.
Yeah, well, and it's nice for me to get to work with, older students as well, because I work with the kindergarten through 8th graders all day. So I like working with adults. It's a lot of, there's a lot of joy in that for me.
Sometimes some of our minds are down there with the kindergarten. Okay.
No, but you have a level of focus, that,
That's true.
yeah. And you want to be here, right? Like the kids that I teach, they have to come to art whether they want to be there or not, but you're joyfully coming to join the class, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, okay, you do have a point on that one.
Yeah.
You do have a point on that one.
Do we want to go ahead and stop the recording? I don't know.
Yeah, we can stop. Yep, we can stop.